The Key West Conundrum Part 2, the theatrical takedown. The discovery of the cooler, the Rocky Drop, as Eli had immediately christened it, had crystallized the entire Conch Crew operation. It wasn't just a ring of petty criminals, it was a performance art piece about American entitlement and distraction. The mastermind V understood that law enforcement, burdened by rules and procedure, was fundamentally incapable of processing the absurd at the speed necessary for an effective response. Detective Eli Thorne found himself in a strange, exhilarating place. His cerebral psychological approach was finally paying off. He was no longer analyzing vomit patterns. He was dissecting stagecraft. V is a narcissist with a drama degree. Eli summarized to Officer Flynn and Officer Bush the next morning as they reviewed the seized evidence in a Key West police office that smelled faintly of old coconut oil and regret. He uses comedy and local color as a blanket. The Falardo guy, the cocktail alchemist, he's the sightline. Rocky Balboa is the sound cue. They're not just lookouts. They're distractions designed to keep patrol officers busy with low-level, high-visibility nonsense, ensuring the actual drops like this one, and likely the one in the mangroves, are either missed or dismissed as an accident. Flynn, stirring his iced tea with a look of genuine discomfort, pointed at the list of hotels found in the drop. So V is now elevated from beachside hustles to high-end identity theft. These are the swankiest places in the Keys. What's the move? The move is to become the invisible man, Eli replied, tapping the profile of V he had been compiling. V is likely posing as a high roller blending into the very environment he's exploiting. The profile suggests a clean-cut, utterly unmemorable man in his late 20s to early 30s. Educated, charming, and capable of holding a conversation about yacht maintenance or stock futures. The perfect predator, the one you offer a drink to. He paused, looking at Bush, the stolid, methodical officer who had forced the drop. Bush, I need you to stay on Rocky Balboa. Not to arrest him, but to observe. We need to know who he talks to after his shift. Who pays him? He is the last node in the network we have physical contact with. Bush nodded, accepting the surveillance assignment with the same calm efficiency with which he'd issued the traffic warning. Flynn, I need the surveillance logs for these hotels, specifically around the concierge desks and high-traffic common areas. We're looking for a person who carries a tablet or a laptop, but spends an inordinate amount of time taking calls near cash registers or check-in desks. They'll be using a micro-skimming device, a shimmer, on the hotel's point-of-sale systems. Eli himself decided on a more direct theatrical approach to counter V's own love of performance. He needed to make a scene that was so ridiculously, intentionally conspicuous that it became invisible, the Key West paradox. The target was the Coral Palm, a five-star resort where the average daily room rate exceeded Eli's monthly mortgage payment. Eli, using an old, completely legitimate identity from a Homeland Security training, exercised the fictitious, absurdly wealthy, and slightly unhinged Dr. Alistair Finch checked in. His performance began immediately at the concierge desk. Dr. Finch was a man who viewed the world as a series of personal slights. Yes, I need to know the exact thread count of the linens. I have a rare skin condition. It's called lupus eruptus exorbitantis. It means I can only tolerate 800 thread count Egyptian cotton woven on a Tuesday. Eli announced loudly to the genuinely bewildered concierge, a young man who looked like he'd been hired for his smile and not his medical knowledge. The ensuing 15 minutes were a masterclass in controlled eccentricity. Eli argued about the structural integrity of the minibar, the angle of the ocean view. It's not ocean, it's maritime expanse. Please be precise, and the moral implications of using imported orchids, floral arrangements. His goal, to create a profile so memorable and so annoying that no one, including the actual criminal operating in the lobby, would pay attention to his surveillance activities. When everyone is looking at the spectacle, no one is looking at the small, crucial details. As he stood in the lobby arguing with a bellhop about the appropriate curvature of a banana in the complimentary fruit bowl, Eli's eyes scanned the room. The Conch Crew's modus operandi MO was to use the sheer volume of tourists to hide their identity theft activities. Their primary weapon was a sophisticated small-scale skimmer, the Shimmer, that they would plant on high-volume payment terminals. V would then sit nearby, extracting the data via a discrete Bluetooth connection. And there he was. In a plush leather chair, sipping a drink that probably cost more than Eli's suit, sat a man who fit the profile perfect. Late 20s designer polo, a watch that screamed new money, questionable taste, and an air of detached, calm superiority. He was holding a tablet, a generic featureless model, and occasionally tapping at it while pretending to read a resort brochure. Crucially, his seat gave him a clear sightline over the reception desk where the skimmer was likely planted. Eli still loudly debating the structural integrity of the fruit bowl with the unfortunate bellhop moved closer to the suspect. And the thermal output of that HVAC system, it's simply criminal. Do you know what excessive heat does to a sensitive microchip? Eli exclaimed, gesturing wildly. V, the suspect, glanced up annoyed by the interruption to his digital harvesting. He was, Eli noted, utterly unmemorable. His face was a landscape of beige, his hair impeccably styled into a non-hairstyle. Eli moved closer, positioning his body between V and the reception desk. And the noise. The sheer decibel level of your standard check-in is an insult to the quiet desperation of a man on vacation. V finally spoke his voice, a low, smooth baritone. Sir, I think you are disturbing the other guests. Disturbing Eli scoffed, performing his part perfectly. I am merely initiating a dialogue on thermodynamic and ergonomic failures in the hospitality sector. Are you a facilities manager, sir? No? Then perhaps you should mind your own thermal output. As Eli spoke, he discreetly activated a small specialized device hidden within the wristband of his watch, a powerful signal scrambler designed to disrupt high-frequency Bluetooth and NFC transmissions. V immediately frowned. He began tapping his tablet faster, his smooth facade cracking. The data stream had been cut. The shimmers were useless. If you'll excuse me, V said, standing up, his tone now cold, I need to make a call. A call. Always a call, the American solution to every problem. Is it to your stockbroker? I hope you've diversified beyond cryptocurrency, sir, because that market is showing the same systemic instability as your lobby's air conditioning, Eli. Followed him, his voice rising, ensuring every eye in the lobby was fixed on the ridiculous Dr. Finch. V attempted to exit through a side door leading to the pool deck, but Eli cut him off using the banana incident as cover. Bellhop, look at this banana. It's bruised. The curvature is all wrong. Who sourced this fruit? Is this part of the Concru supply chain? Eli yelled deliberately using the coded name. V froze. The mention of the name paired with Eli's suddenly focused gaze shattered the calm. He knew he was compromised. V dropped his tablet, a clear admission of guilt, and bolted for the main exit. He's on the move, Eli yelled into his hidden mic. Suspect fleeing the lobby's south entrance, code V in sight. The chase was less a desperate flight and more a tactical retreat. V was fast and knew the resort's layout intimately. He led Eli through the resort's back corridors, a series of service elevators and kitchen hallways. Eli, the academic profiler, was physically outmatched, but he had one advantage: he knew where V had to go. V needed to get back to his primary base, which Eli had identified as a secluded rental house near Mallory Square, close to the tourist traffic, but far enough from the main police presence. And to get there fast, he had to go through Duval Street. Eli cut V off at the pool deck, a chaotic scene of sunbathers and an overly loud DJ. V stopped. We know your real name is Victor Corvus, Eli shouted. We have your mules, we have the gear, and we have the full psychological profile. You're not a financial genius. You're an identity thief with a penchant for melodrama. Victor Corvus V stopped dead by the pool's edge. He smiled a cold, empty expression. Sloppy is leaving your panicked mule Declan to be eaten by a gator, Eli retorted. Sloppy is basing your entire signal system on a single, easily traceable local eccentricity. Corvus shrugged, adjusting his designer polo. A small tax. I've already generated $500,000 in usable credit. You can't stop the flow, detective. This place is a self-sustaining ecosystem of bad decisions and disposable income. And then Victor Corvus did the one thing Eli hadn't accounted for. He dove fully clothed into the pool, submerging himself beneath a startled group of tourists. He's using the pool for cover. Check the drain system, Eli yelled, exasperated. Meanwhile, a few blocks away, Officer Bush was conducting his surveillance on Rocky Balboa. Rocky had completed his scheduled afternoon loop and was back in his favorite alleyway, cleaning his sputtering moped with meticulous care. Bush observed from a distance, watching the minutia. Rocky was a man of routine. Every bolt, every spoke, every inch of the gray sweatsuit was given a loving, almost ritualistic attention. Then a signal, the distant, high-pitched yelp of Eli's hidden microphone, accidentally transmitting his post-dive exasperation. Bush heard the muffled, waterlogged voice. "Check the drain system." Rocky Balboa froze. He heard the transmission too. His face, usually a mask of cinematic optimism, contorted into a brief, genuine look of panic. He knew the network was in trouble. He immediately reached into the seat of his moped, not pulling out a weapon, but a small waterproof radio transmitter. He began issuing a series of rapid coded clicks. Bush knew this was it. He moved in fast and quiet. Rocky Balboa Bush said, his voice calm and authoritative, "I need you to drop the device. Now, hands in the air." Rocky sighed, his shoulders slumping. He dropped the transmitter. "Oh man, I was just trying to entertain these people. That's all it is." "I know you are, Bush," said his tone sympathetic, "but your entertainment just crossed into conspiracy, Rocky, and I need to know who V is." "V is a fan. He pays me for the routine. He loves the Rocky aesthetic. I just ride and wave. I'm just a comic from New Jersey, man." The comic from New Jersey, Bush repeated, looking at the complex military-grade radio transmitter on the ground, the one with the comedy routine that involves a coded signal system linked to a transnational fraud ring. "It's a fantastic punchline, Rocky, but the audience isn't laughing anymore." Eli, dripping wet and furious, met up with Flynn near Mallory Square, having lost Corvus in the labyrinthine Key West backstreets. He's headed to his safe house near the square. He's trying to retrieve the last of his assets, likely cash or passports, and he's going to use the Sunset crowd as cover. Eli panted, shaking water from his linen shirt. Just then, Bush's voice crackled over the radio, calm and measured. "Suspect Balboa is in custody. The rock is cracked. He confirms V's real name is Victor Corvus. He also confirms Corvus is heavily armed, and his final extraction point is a private dock near the square, a yacht named the Conch Shell." Eli's eyes widened. A yacht. Of course. The theatrical flourish. He's escaping in style. They race toward the square, the setting sun painting the sky in colors too dramatic for real life, a perfect backdrop for Corvus's final scene. Mallory Square was a madhouse, hundreds of tourist street performers, fire eaters, and the famous Key West sunset celebration. Corvus, now wearing a simple dark jacket retrieved from a hidey hole, moved through the crowd, a large expensive backpack clutched tightly. He was just a few feet from the dock. Eli and Flynn knew they couldn't risk a gunfight in a crowd this thick. They needed a distraction so spectacular that it would freeze the crowd and isolate Corvus. "Flynn, what's the largest, most disruptive thing we have right now?" Eli asked desperately. Flynn pointed toward the dock, where Corvus was about to board a sleek yacht. The Conch Shell is about to cast off. But look, a battered old delivery truck, painted bright yellow, was attempting to navigate the packed square, blaring a cartoonish horn. The driver was stuck in the middle of the crowded performance area. Eli looked at the truck, then back at Corvus, who was now smiling, thinking he was free. "Perfect. We're gonna give Corvus the ending he deserves," Eli said, grabbing Flynn's hand. Eli ran to the yellow truck, flashed his badge, and yelled to the bewildered driver. "Emergency, I need your vehicle for an unscheduled, critically important, and highly dramatic police procedure." With Eli in the driver's seat and Flynn clinging to the passenger's side, the yellow truck suddenly accelerated into the square horn, blaring a continuous, deafening awooga. The spectacle was immediate. The fire eaters stopped eating fire. The tourists stopped filming the sunset. Everyone looked at the ridiculous yellow truck barreling through the heart of the celebration. Eli drove the truck not toward Corvus, but toward the yacht's mooring line, performing a perfect, albeit completely unnecessary bootleg turn that slid the truck to a stop just feet from the water. The distraction was achieved. The crowd was frozen in a collective state of bewildered amusement. Victor Corvus, standing at the yacht's railing, stared at the spectacle, his mouth agape. His perfect escape was ruined by a yellow delivery truck. Eli jumped out his damp shirt, clinging to him, and pulled out his weapon. Victor Corvus Falardo and Key West PD. The show is over. You're under arrest for high-level fraud, narcotics distribution, and the criminal use of a theme song for illegal signaling. Eli shouted, his voice echoing over the sudden silence of the square. Corvus, realizing the depth of the humiliation his sophisticated escape ruined by a clown car maneuver, snapped. He reached for the weapon tucked into his waistband. But before he could clear, Leather Officer Bush, appearing seemingly from nowhere, having executed a perfect silent flanking maneuver from the opposite side of the dock, delivered a clean, non-lethal tackle. Corvus hit the ground with a grunt, his gun skittering harmlessly across the deck. The crowd, realizing this wasn't an act but a genuine dramatic action movie arrest, burst into applause. A tourist immediately started chanting "Rocky, Rocky, Rocky," a bizarre, ironic salute to the very chaos that had enabled the crime and then helped solve it. Later that night, as the paperwork was being processed and Victor Corvus was booked, Eli sat across from the captured Rocky Balboa, the comic from New Jersey, whose real name was prosaically Gary Jenkins. So Gary Eli said, sipping a lukewarm coffee, "You weren't a criminal mastermind. You were just a very well-paid lookout." Gary, the former Rocky Balboa, was surprisingly calm. V. Corvus, he was my biggest fan. He paid me $1,000 a week just to keep the routine, to be visible. He said, "Gary, your art is the perfect camouflage. Nobody suspects the clown." And the radio, the coded signals, he provided it. He told me, "When you hear the code, drive the route, blast the music, and make a show of it. If you get pulled over, act confused. If you can't make the drop, ditch the cooler on the high note of the theme song." It was a script detective. A terrible, wonderful script. Eli nodded. The tragic comedy of it all. The Conch Crew was built on the premise that no one would take the ridiculous seriously. "You're looking at serious time," Gary Eli said gently. Gary looked down, then back up the optimistic sheen of Rocky Balboa, gone, replaced by the tired resignation of a failed comic. "I know. But hey, I got a hell of a story for my next set, right? I was an accessory to transnational fraud, and all I got was a lifetime ban from driving a moped in Key West." Eli smiled a genuine, tired smile. The criminal mind, he thought, was always looking for the punchline, even in the booking room. The case was closed. The criminal psychologist had become an improvisational actor, and the mundane chaos of everyday police work had once again revealed the absurd depths of human ambition and failure. He stood up, grabbing his now damp but clean suit jacket. "Officer Flynn, I believe I'm done with the keys. Send the full report to Miami. And tell Officer Bush he deserves a commendation for turning a potential low-level ticket into a felony arrest. He's a tactical genius disguised as a fire hydrant." As Eli walked out of the precinct and back onto the neon-drenched streets of Key West, he glanced over at the main courthouse steps. A new performer was setting up testing his equipment. He wore a tuxedo, a gold-painted mask, and was preparing to juggle flaming chainsaws. Only in Key West, Eli thought. And the show always goes on. The criminal mind was predictable only in its desire to be unique. And as long as there were tourists willing to be distracted, there would be criminals ready to exploit the theatrical chaos of life. He was ready for that espresso now, a large one.